Welcome back. I'm Larry Dawalt, one of the Dharma leaders here at Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. We're not completely, totally back because we would be shaking hands and waving and this and that. Instead, I'm going to invite you online as well as you here. We're going to do the greeting at what I understand is the greeting at Plum Village by the children. The children have very little responsibility. They're at the monastery founded by Thich Nhat Hanh, but their responsibility is simply to smile. So your responsibility to each other on here and you guys here is to smile. Big old smiles. What have I been up to smiles? Those kind of smiles. May we be embraced by our smiles. Tonight I'm going to talk from the subject, mindfully consuming the Dharma. Now, if you haven't eaten yet, I'm sorry, we're going to talk about food for just a few minutes. Not that much, but we will talk a little bit. And hunger in our society, in this room, is impermanent. You'll get there. But what kind of eater are you? Are you a fast eater? You wolf it down? A slow eater? An eat and run eater? I'm just going to grab a bite eater. A picky eater. A let's get this over with because we've got things to do eater. Chances are, it depends on the situation, what you're eating, how much time you have, and other factors like that. There's also such a thing as mindful eating. A mindful eater is one who takes a bite, then maybe actually puts the fork or spoon down and chews slowly and deliberately, perhaps even closing their eyes in mindfulness. You won't see this at McDonald's, Burger King, Hardee's. I remember my first trip to the Southern Dharma Retreat Center in the North Carolina mountains when I tried it for the first time. We'd gone into silence the night before, so it was breakfast. My breakfast was oatmeal and a banana, and this is when I first gave it a try. Using my peripheral vision and trying to avoid eye contact, I watched my fellow yogis model the process. Never done this before, and I wanted to do it right, for God's sakes. Slowly putting a bite into the mouth, putting down the spoon, and either closing their eyes or putting them into a long, sort of blank stare. When I looked at the schedule, I'd wondered why the meal period was so long, and now I knew. I'm a slow eater anyway, so it was wonderful. What became a problem was that the oatmeal was good and I was hungry. But I stayed with the process and now actually have at home, mostly when I'm alone, done it and enjoyed mindful eating. We'll be eating mindfully at our upcoming retreat in September. We pause for this commercial message. If you're considering joining us, go ahead and register. I registered this week. The system works great, seamless, easy. And I hope you'll enjoy it, especially if you've not been on a retreat before or haven't been on one in a while. We've got a wonderful retreat planned. So, what does how we eat have to do with mindfully consuming the Dharma? From the standpoint of reading, Has a lot to do with it. What kind of Dharma reader are you? Do you like to find a book and go through it in a hurry? Do you like to read a few paragraphs or pages and then get back to what you were doing? Do you like to read a sutta from start to finish so you can move on to another one? Chances are, depends on the situation, what you're studying, how much time you have, and other factors like that. Unlike my eating pace, mindful Dharma consumption is something I have had to patiently learn. My mother is an English teacher. We read. And if I remember correctly, the more books you read, the more gold stars you got. Remember that? And it was just so great, especially at the elementary level, to get a gold star. And some of the Dharma books I've read were so fascinating, I couldn't stop turning the pages. I remember the first time I read Ajahn Chah. And it was like, oh my goodness. Turn, turn, turn. But as my study deepened, I found myself reading some of those books again or listening to them again because I'd missed so much. You can't see a beautiful sunset when you're driving 100 miles an hour. You have to pull back. You have to slow down. The Dharma is rich, and it has become even richer now that I've learned to slow down a little bit and enjoy mindful consumption. So, what is mindful consumption of the Dharma? It's taking the time to pause when you feel the need. It's letting a sentence or a paragraph get your attention and grab you. Then stopping to reflect. It may include taking the time to read it over and over, underline, then read it again. I read with a yellow highlighter. If I've had a good session, when I'm through, my fingers are yellow because I've been painting those words. And I've had people want to borrow my books because all they're going to do is read the yellow. They're going to finish in a hurry because they figure I've already screened it for them. At times, I've found it even important to put the book down and breathe, or maybe even go into a period, though short, of meditation, just to pull out and let it sink in as if I was chewing that perfect bite. There are many books that merit this sort of pondering, especially the suttas, and the books with detailed commentary from stellar teachers, like those of Bhikkhu Bodhi, Bhante Gunaratana, Bhikkhu Analayo, Kanisaro Bhikkhu, Joseph Goldstein, just to name a few. And probably you're sitting there in your head adding a couple of others that just really come to mind. And yes, it's okay for you to add some in too. These times of pondering give us the opportunity to chew on what we have read. And as we relax into the words, we can let them settle at times to the point that we can feel ourselves being nourished by what we're reading. We can feel our practice being nourished like a good meal would nourish our physical bodies. You probably are thinking your favorites that you read with mindfulness. But on the other hand, you may still be like I was and still sometimes am, going fast and wondering what you just read, or even if it was worth reading the book at all. There are books on my shelf that I haven't read yet. It's not time. I firmly believe in the saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Why didn't I read that 10 years ago when I bought it? It wasn't time. There are other books it's time for me to read again. But when I get into something obviously thought-provoking, I've learned to slow down. And I would invite you to do that, to just feel it, just be mindfully aware. This is something I need to sit with. This is a garden I need to watch grow. There are other opportunities to slow down in our practice and apply the Dharma to our daily lives. When you brush your teeth, do you feel the bubbles? Do you feel the scrubbing? The goo? The smell of the toothpaste? The sensations in your mouth? Mindful brushing. When you're driving, do you occasionally take an opportunity to drive without any music, or in my case, without a book playing through the Bluetooth, and just listen to the sounds? Every now and then, I will take myself back to my childhood and roll down the window just to feel it. Remember, that was air conditioning, AC 55, just blowing all over you. And that awareness is something that if you've got them all rolled up, and even if you're listening to WDAV, you're in a different world that's not necessarily present moment. Washing dishes can be a mindful process. And the realization that the more you wash, the more impermanent the dirty dishes become. They become clean dishes. Exercising. Are we listening to the beat to distract us from the pain? Or can we silently, fully engage in the process and perhaps even listen to our body the same way we do on the cushion or in the chair and feel what is happening? Ever tried a body scan on a treadmill? Or while walking the track? My PT friend, we were talking a minute ago, I PT this afternoon. We're still working on this neck and back. It's coming strong. But the physical therapist is constantly checking with me as to my awareness of what's going on. And so it's made me aware. I'm asking myself the same questions that I know he's going to ask me at 4:15 every Wednesday afternoon. And what about just being outside in general? I'll tell on myself a little more. I remember several years ago, I just started meditating, and I was really into guided meditation at the time because I was just kind of getting kicked off here. And I was sitting by the ocean on Clearwater Beach, listening to a guided meditation with a background of sounds from the ocean. And suddenly saying to myself, why don't you just listen to the ocean? Mindfulness meditation can be defined as reaching a mental state that involves being focused on the now so you can acknowledge and accept your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. Now, I was judging myself listening to that meditation, and it was sort of like the great call from the movie Moonstruck. Snap out of it. Get present. But sometimes even in meditation, it can be easy to lose our mindfulness. And we can lose our mindfulness during our times of reading, even reading the Dharma. And that's why I think it's necessary for us to become familiar with some specific books that aren't exactly start to finish books, but rather books that can provide substantial nourishment in small portions. And you're making plans to eat, digest, take this in small rather than large doses. And for me, one of the best books for mindful consumption is Your Friendly Neighborhood Dhammapada. This is the Gil Fronsdale translation. The Dhammapada is a short book, if you're not familiar with it, 423 verses, So this has got a lot of commentary in it. And it's one of the texts that's part of the canon of Theravadan Buddhism, particularly the Sutta Pitaka, the basket of teachings that's most often used here at IMC Charlotte. A particularly refreshing fact about this little book is that it can be accessed for free on the internet. Not this translation, but there are many different translations, and if you type into a search engine, Dhammapada, it's Dhamma with the pada on the end, Dhammapada, and especially if you type in Dhammapada PDF, you'll get the entire text with commentary right on your screen. You'll also get the opportunity to buy an edition of the book, but the text will be there, right there on your screen. So what I would like for us to do in the last few minutes that we have tonight is try some mindful consumption of the words of the Dhammapada. You won't be reading them. I'm going to read them to you. But I invite you to get comfortable, get in a comfortable yet mindful posture. Settle your eyes into a closed state or perhaps a blank stare, whatever is most comfortable for you. Breathe slowly and mindfully. And let these words of the Buddha, these are the words of the Buddha from the Dhammapada, nourish you. I'll read these words slowly and then give a long pause and then read some more. All experience is preceded by mind, led by mind, made by mind. Speak or act with a peaceful mind, and happiness follows like a never-departing shadow. One who recites but a few teachings, yet lives according to the Dhamma, abandoning passion, ill will, and delusion, aware and with mind well freed, not clinging in this life or the next, attains the benefits of the contemplative life. Neither mother nor father, nor any other relative can do one as much good as one's own well-directed mind. Better than reciting 100 meaningless verses is one line of Dharma, which, having been heard, brings peace. If one knew oneself to be precious, one would guard oneself with care. It is easy to do what is not good and things that harm oneself. It is very difficult to do things beneficial and good. When someone going for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha sees with right insight the Four Noble Truths: suffering, the arising of suffering, the overcoming of suffering, and the Eightfold Path leading to the end of suffering, then this is the secure refuge. This is the supreme refuge. By going to such a refuge, one is released from all suffering. Sitting alone, resting alone, walking alone, untiring and alone. Whoever has tamed oneself will find delight in the forest. And finally, the gift of Dharma surpasses all gifts. The taste of Dharma surpasses all taste. The delight in Dharma surpasses all delights. The destruction of craving conquers all suffering.